Hello. Just kidding.
Hey.
Welcome to My Story Matters, week 6, and probably 7 too, to be honest. Today on the podcast, I am blessed with the lovely fellowship of these boys right here. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's Axel. I'm a senior, and I'm a worship apprentice on SFD.
Yeah, my name is Ethan. I'm a junior, and I'm the athletics chaplain this year.
Yes, sir.
Hey.
Axel, what's up, my boy?
Oh, it's
Hey.
good.
I'll
It's
start
good,
with
brother.
you, bro.
Sick.
Kind of give us like a quick summary of your backstory. Where are you from and,
Okay.
you know,
I grew up in a small town called Paris for like the past, 10, 15 years.
London, Paris?
Paris, France.
London? You're from Paris?
I'm from Paris. No, it's a small, it's Perris.
Oh, okay.
Like near Riverside.
Okay.
A decently small town. But I was born in Texas, and we moved back and forth, California and Texas, before that. But I just say I'm from Paris because
Cool.
that's where I grew up. Vanguard.
Cool. Since this is My Story Matters and it's about like kind of our testimonies,
Yeah.
what's kind of your story on how you came to Christ?
Okay. Well, I grew up in the church. I was basically born into it.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were insanely involved in it. My dad was basically, you would title him as a worship pastor, an elder, and he was a preacher.
Uh-huh.
And my mom was a worship leader at the church.
Jeez, highly involved.
High-
Talk about every branch of the church.
highly
right?
involved. Highly involved.
Dang. Super cool.
Yeah, we were super close to the lead pastors. I'd basically call him my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a very legalistic religious church.
Mm-hmm.
And so like following the Lord was never something I wanted to do growing up.
Mm-hmm.
It was more just like a responsibility that I felt like I had to uphold. My parents kind of instilled this like mentality of like, hey, we're in leadership and everybody's watching us, so that means everyone's watching you.
Yeah.
And so it was never like, I never really had a relationship with the Lord growing up in that church. And it was more just like I was trying to keep an image of making everybody else happy. And so,
just for the people who don't understand what legalistic may mean,
yeah.
what does that like mean?
So it basically means like there's rules in place and you have to follow them in order to like get something.
Yeah.
So kind of like in the like for Christians, it's like we have a lot of people like do 10 commandments or just like what you'd see in the Bible of what you should and shouldn't do, and they like kind of have that as concrete. These are the rules you have to follow in order to be a good Christian, and if you follow them, then you'll gain love and acceptance by God. And if you don't do that, then you have to work your way back into love and acceptance through following all those rules.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what growing up in church was for me for the first 17 years of my life.
Maybe more so like, when did you realize your church was like super legalistic, and then you kind of turned kind of your shoulder towards
That's a
that
good one.
and saw the, the fault in it?
Yeah. I always felt like there was something wrong with it. I'd always ask my parents questions, and I mean, they fully believed and they were like fully into everything that was going on. So they'd never had answers for me.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't until COVID happened where some people in my family came out positive, and my dad was like, all right, we're all just going to lock ourselves in the house, because nobody had symptoms.
Uh-huh.
So they were like, we're just going to lock ourselves in the house until everybody comes out negative. And at that point, since he was a preacher, he like felt the Lord kind of pushing him to want to know more about the Bible and like learn it well. And so he would do a bunch of research. He'd watch all these YouTube videos. And in that like month that we were stuck in our house, he learned all of that stuff and kind of got to this point of realization of like, everything I've learned about following the Lord was wrong.
Whoa.
Dang.
And so he had kind of like this existential crisis.
Yeah.
And he would talk to me about it. And he like would bring these like concerns up with our pastor, and he was like our old pastor was very headstrong, and so he was like, no, you're wrong. Like,
Yeah.
And my dad told me that there was one conversation that he had with him where he like had so much biblical proof that he was like, I literally saw in his eyes that when I would show him things that were in the Bible, he almost like didn't want it to be there because it would prove him wrong.
Dang.
And so that all happened, and as all that was going on, it was like everything was kind of clicking. When my dad was telling me all about this, is like, oh, no wonder everything like seemed so wrong. No wonder you like didn't have any questions because you didn't even know that there was a different answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's kind of when everything like clicked.
Dang. Ethan, feel free to hop in anytime also, just to let
for
you know.
sure.
Green light.
Thank you.
That do you want me to tell you what like that honestly makes me think about?
What?
I watched a movie about a cult.
No,
I watched,
dude, yes.
Yeah, that's what
yes,
it is.
that's what it was.
I watched a movie about a cult, and it's like the definition of a cult. I mean, I don't know the exact words off the top of my head, but it's like a belief system that is set by one man, and you can't question that, or else,
Yeah.
you know, if that person doesn't take any questions, you just have to listen to that person,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the definition of a cult. That's
Yeah.
exactly what that sounds like.
I was basically in a cult. No, literally. And it was like, you were only surrounded by people in that cult, basically, of like, I wasn't allowed to have like deep friendships outside of the church.
Yeah.
And so it was like even trying to do sports, like I wasn't even like able to do that because either my parents weren't super supportive, or they were like, you don't have time for this because you have to be at church Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday morning, Friday morning.
Dang,
Like,
bro.
they were like super heavily, like church was another job outside of everything else. And it revolved around everything. Like God didn't even revolve around your life. Like it was church.
Dang.
It was serving, and it was doing all of that stuff. And being in that, you like never knew that there was anything outside of that because you were only ever able to interact with everything inside.
Yeah.
Sure.
And even like when we ended up leaving in 2021, like second semester of my senior year of high school, I kind of came to this realization of like, you don't know what you don't know. Like I didn't even know that there was anything outside of this. Like I didn't know that there was like something good about the Lord to even experience.
Yeah.
And so it was like insanely cultish to the point where I even participated in this too when I was in there, of like, you just completely disassociate yourself from anybody who leaves the church, because it was kind of like you treated it as if like they just left God.
Yeah.
And so you just have no relationship with them because you can't associate yourself with sinners.
Like
Dang.
even if they just went to like a different church?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
If they left, you cut them off.
Do you ever feel like you struggle like falling back into religion over relationship with God?
Definitely. Well, because you grow up in that, and you have kind of like this sense of pride within yourself of like, oh, look at me, I'm like fulfilling all of these rules, and you can't, so I'm better than you.
Dang.
And so there's this like kind of, you like separate yourself because you're not allowed to be with sinners, but you also separate yourself because you feel like you're better than other people.
Like holier than thou?
Yeah, literally just that mindset. And that always starts to creep in when I forget of my own sinfulness.
Yeah.
When I look at all the good things about myself and I don't realize, like, oh, actually, I kind of suck sometimes.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's like, it's so easy for that to pop in every now and then, because it was so deeply ingrained, in my mind for the first 17 years.
So what are like some like practical ways that you go about making sure that doesn't come back?
Honestly, just every time I like read my Bible, every time I pray, like the Lord kind of reminds you how much I suck as a person, like in the best way possible.
Yeah. He humbles you. I mean,
He humbles
you.
me so much.
That's real.
He humbles me too. He humbles me too.
For real.
And even like in the moment where like when there's people that I'm like not the biggest fan of because their character like doesn't align with it, like the Lord comes in, he's like, you were the exact same way, dog. Like,
Dang.
who are you to like even have any feelings against them, when it's like you had no idea you were in that when you were there.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I
That's
feel like
good.
I feel like we can go so many different directions with this conversation right now.
Yeah.
But I think the direction I want to go in is just the fact that humility, in my opinion, I've found is probably one of the most impactful lessons you could learn in the early age of your life.
Definitely.
Like, it's super cool that, I mean, it's a slippery slope that you were in.
Yeah.
But you kind of, your dad helped you.
Yeah.
And you, like, pulled out of that, so.
Dude.
That's
And
good.
even with like worshiping, that's another aspect of having to be humble.
Yeah.
Because it's like, just in church, a lot of people like to kind of like make them as celebrities. Like the same lead pastors, worship leaders, they like to make them celebrities. And so there's like a sense of pride within yourself for that. That you kind of like forget that you even have to have a relationship with the Lord, because it's like, oh, but I'm a great singer.
Yeah, I was just talking to Gwen and Amber about this last week, and they were saying the same thing. Like, there's so much humility that you have to have when leading.
Yeah.
And I've always thought about that with like my favorite worship leaders, like Chandler Moore, and I don't know. Well, he's just my number one favorite. Shout out Chandler Moore, I love that guy. But I always wondered about that celebrity aspect, because it does seem like they have all this clout and all this power. Like, what does that do to them? It has to do something.
Yeah. Well, you kind of like, you start to lean on your talent over like the fact that the only reason you're up there is because the Lord like opened that door for you to even be there.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't think it shifts, but you can tell the difference when someone's like leading worship out of pride and leading worship because they're I have nothing else to give but this, and it's like he deserves so much more from me. You know what I mean? Yeah. When it comes out of a heart of like, I've experienced life and I know that I can't do anything without the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how you can, in anything we do, really, like you can do it in either a heart of pride or you can do it in a heart of worship. You do the same action, but you can do them out of different postures of heart.
Yeah.
And it's just so important that like our posture is pure, right? That's why the Lord says, come on. That's what the Lord says.
Amen.
The Lord looks at the heart. Come on.
Literally.
Come on.
And you can slip into it so fast and not even realize you're like knee deep into it, which is nuts. Yeah. And you have to constantly remind yourself of how like, of how just unworthy you are of anything at that point. It's like you can't be humble without realizing God is so much bigger than who you even are just as a person. Because it's like, then you realize like life has no meaning without God. Like I literally can't walk through life like in peace, regardless of how difficult it's going to be or how difficult it is without God. Yeah. When you start thinking you can do things on your own, that's when it's like everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I can attest to that for sure.
So my dad has these conversations of like that he thinks like all of these things are wrong, and he comes to our pastor with biblical proof. He doesn't want the answers to actually be in the Bible, and so my dad sees that and he's like, okay, it's time for us to head out.
Yeah.
And so it was, and there were also a bunch of other things going on aside from that it was like, okay, it's time for us to leave. And so during that like process before he like decided that we were leaving, my cousin had invited me to the church I'm at right now. It's called Crossroads. It's out in Corona, for like their first young adults gathering in person, like inside. And I went, and it was the craziest thing ever. Like I had never experienced anyone say like, I love you outside of my mom and my dad.
Whoa.
Like, so it was like getting there and feeling the love of people my age and having people say like, I love you just for the fact that you exist was crazy to me. Okay. We got there. And within the first year, the Lord was just like consistently breaking down, just that religion of pridefulness and feeling like I had to work in order to gain something. And I think a lot of what he exposed was just how much love I truly needed, because there was always just an expectation to perform, regardless if that was on stage or if that was just being a preacher's kid, being a pastor's kid, that you had to perform and you had to give people what they wanted from you. And a lot of what I learned in that first year of being at Crossroads was that the Lord loved me just for the fact that I was existing. Yeah. That there's like, that he chose to love me regardless of what I had to offer. Like there was nothing that he needed from me, but he just wanted me, period. Which was the thing that kind of transformed me the most.
How did you kind of feel that love the most? You kind of mentioned it was through the people there.
Yeah.
Or was it through like an experience in worship or, Yeah,
it was definitely through the people there. at our old church, I like thought I had friends, and they were like super. I realized later on that they were like super shallow friendships of like you only talk about surface level things that you don't talk about anything deep, because it was like everybody was trying to perform, and so it was like you don't talk about sin, you don't talk about messing up, and you don't talk about trying to be better because you're supposed to be your best at all times whenever anybody saw you.
Yeah.
And so there, like when I saw people like truly want to know who I was like as a person, and care for me regardless of what position I thought I was in, like whether that was like feeling super sinful and feeling like I deserved nothing, or like feeling like I was at my best, and it was just the unconditional love that everybody poured out that really shifted so much of everything.
Such a reminder that we are Jesus to people.
Yeah.
We are Jesus to people who don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, like,
I mean, especially at Vanguard, I think
Yeah.
everyone constantly needs that love from the Lord, regardless if you are super deep in your relationship with Him or not.
yeah,
Because it's like it's that interaction, even from people you don't know, that can completely shift
yeah.
anything that could be going on in that moment.
Yeah,
You know?
100%. I learned that lesson the hard way. I got a funny story. Like I was in high school and I was going to church, but I wasn't like fully, I would say, surrendered.
Yeah.
And I remember, the way I get mad is like I kind of hold it in, and then like if it gets bad enough, I'll like burst. And my brother, oh my gosh, he gets under my skin so hard, both my brothers, and he was just going at me, and bro, I just was not having it, and I just cussed him out right there on the spot in front of our whole family.
No.
And he's like 5 years older than me, and so
Sheesh.
I cussed him out, and then he hit me with this line, like I thought you were supposed to be like Christian or something. He like, and in that moment I kind of
Conviction
realized,
hit.
like because my family's not Christian. I should preface with that. Like they like some of them are kind of coming to Christ now, which praise God, but they weren't. And so I was kind of that. I was Jesus to them. Like I was their, picture of Jesus. What does being a Christian look like?
Yeah.
What does Jesus? What does his teachings look like? And me cussing my brother out in front of everyone, it was like that wasn't adding up. So I felt super convicted, and that's where I learned that lesson. Like.
Yeah. Well, like it's so easy to like feel like your actions and your words like don't make that much of a difference, when it's like they can mean everything to someone.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad. So it's like you constantly have to not like you have to watch what you're doing. I think you have to constantly seek out more of God's character, and then you realize like, whoa, like He loves me so much regardless of how much I suck as a human being. And then that in turn will make you want to love other people the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's about like owning your mistakes too. Like, cause like in your example, you cussed your brother out, and then you had to like own up to your mistake.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, that was not like Jesus for
Yeah.
me to do that. Dr. Tyra, he's a professor here. He just recently shared a story. He was working as a security guard somewhere, closing shift. And he was supposed to like go into every single room and make sure that it was locked. He goes and sees his boss. He's like, all right, heading home for the night. And then his boss asks him like, hey, did you like check every room? And Dr. Tyra was younger, and he was like, yep, checked every room, good night. And so he left. But then as he's walking back to his car, he just felt super convicted. And then he went back to his boss and said like, hey, I just lied to you. I'm so sorry. Like, that will never happen again. And then a couple years down the line, his boss came and found him because he was pastoring a church, Dr. Tyra was, and said, hey, like, my wife and I were Christians now, and I wanted to share with you that the reason that we became interested in God is that night when you came back and told me, like, hey, I actually didn't do it. I lied to you. I'm so sorry. So I think it's owning our mistakes, too, because we're not perfect. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, that's super good.
Mm-hmm.
Shoots. Well, Axel, bro, you are extremely talented and gifted. Love hearing you sing. But you want to tell us like how you kind of like stepped into that?
Yeah. So Music just in general was always a part of my life. My dad knows how to play virtually every single instrument that's on stage, aside from the drums. And my mom has been leading worship since she was 15. My grandpa would literally write songs for her to sing at different churches. And so she was basically very well known in the Christian community out in Mexico. And so music just in general was always something that was around. So it was like it wasn't something that just happened. Yeah. But I started singing at, I'd say, like 16. Like actually singing when I was 16. Before I would just like run sound and help my dad. And so the first time I did any like ministry, like worship leading was just like on a random Sunday. I pull up. I was in charge of doing sound with my dad, so I'd like pull up early, turn everything on, have everything set for the worship team to pull up. I get there. The musicians get there. There's no singers. 30 minutes go by. There's no singers.
Where were they?
It's game time, baby.
So I didn't find out about this until after, but apparently they got into like a car accident.
Oh.
All of them were fine.
Okay.
All of them are fine now. But apparently someone got into a car accident and they like never ended up being able to make it. And so it was like maybe half an hour, 15 minutes before service was going to start. And my dad was like, there's nobody here. Either you're singing or I'm singing and somebody else is doing lyrics. And I was like, you can't sing for crap. So I'm going to do it.
Had you ever sang before that?
I've sang, but it never like, I don't know if it's like good or not. But
you can't sing for crap. I'm singing.
I'll do it. You can't sing for crap.
Step aside.
But even then, it was still like I didn't even want to do it because it was just like there was no easing into it. It was just like it's all or nothing now.
Yeah.
And so literally in 15, 30 minutes, I made a full set and I led a whole hour-long set of worship.
Hour long?
By myself.
Holy crap.
First time I would like do worship at all.
My goodness gracious.
Yeah, it was nuts. And after that, they would like start having me do more. But I think that was definitely the first time the Lord was like, hey, I'm giving you an open door into this.
Yeah.
And it was always something I'd wanted to do, but I had like some false representation of what it was like to be a worship leader, just people filled with pride and self-ambition and just trying to do things to climb a ladder to like get any certain type of view. So I never wanted to like actually be a worship leader. Like I even cringed at the fact of saying like, oh, this is what I wanted to do, just because I always had like a bad image of what that was supposed to look like. And the Lord definitely refined that at my old church for sure. He humbled me a lot. And kind of he kind of showed me what it meant to have a heart of worship, and have that like come out as I'm leading worship, and just knowing like it's more of a you're pulling from your experience with God, and that's supposed to lead you through your whole set, and that's what makes it good. It's not the fact that you can sing really well or anything like that, but it's just the fact that you know how to worship by yourself, so you'll know how to do it in front of other people.
That's what I hear in you know, leading worship. So
that's good.
And you don't get paid nothing.
And I don't get paid.
This man don't get paid nothing. He does so much work.
Vanguard, I'm still waiting for my check.
Oh
my gosh.
But hey, riches in heaven. Come on.
Come on.
Riches in heaven.
But thank you for that, bro.
Hey.
Yeah. So hopefully that encourages like anyone who is scared to lead worship.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, it's like I think nobody ever believes that they're ready for anything, and it's like that was definitely a moment that I needed, because I knew I would not have the balls to do anything if it wasn't for the Lord just completely throwing me into it.
Yeah.
Like even now, like being an apprentice with Amber and OJ on that team, and leading a group of vocalists for Excavate, and then even helping out with Athletics Chapel. Like I would have never thought I would be qualified to do that. And so literally just getting thrown off the deep end and just being like, I have no other option but to trust in the Lord that He's going to be able to come through when I can't, is kind of like what you really need to have as a mindset. Because it's like, it'll always feel easier to ease into something, but it's like that's never always the option. And so you kind of always have to say like, I need to trust God in what he's calling me into, kind of like what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And like, hey, like this is going to be scary. This might be hard. And it's completely new. But if I feel the Lord like tugging me to go do it, like I know it's going to come out in the end.
Yeah.